Every legendary spiritual awakening conceals an untold narrative, and this one involves a woman whose name has been deliberately erased from history. Picture this. You're experiencing the pinnacle of existence residing in a magnificent palace, married to a charming prince, cradling a precious infant son. In ancient India, you possess everything society considers valuable. Then, without warning, dawn breaks and he's vanished, not departed for duties, not traveling for political matters, completely disappeared. Your infant weeps in the adjacent chamber. Palace attendants exchange hushed whispers. And you're drowning in uncertainty. Is your husband deceased? Captured by enemies? Or did he simply decide your family wasn't worth his commitment? Depending on which historical account you examine, 6 years elapse. Certain sources suggest up to 15 years of absolute silence. Then suddenly, this man appears at your doorstep. Except he's unrecognizable as the husband you knew. He's transformed into the Buddha, the awakened one, the individual everyone proclaims as history's most profound spiritual master. Meanwhile, you remain the wife he discarded like yesterday's clothing. But here's the truth they've hidden from you. That wasn't the complete story. The abandoned woman actually evolved into one of her era's most groundbreaking spiritual revolutionaries. She didn't merely survive abandonment. She weaponized that anguish to forge herself into something unprecedented. Today, we're uncovering the narrative deliberately omitted from textbooks. Yasodhara's journey, the Buddha's wife, the woman who alchemized heartbreak into enlightenment and permanently altered spirituality's landscape. By this video's conclusion, your perception of Buddhism's origin story will be forever transformed. The Destined Union, Ancient India, 500 BCE. The borderlands where modern India and Nepal converge. This saga begins generations before their births. According to the Jataka tales, Buddhist texts chronicling past lives, these two souls were cosmically intertwined across multiple existences. In one previous incarnation, Yasodhara was a faithful wife who prayed relentlessly for her husband's spiritual evolution. In another lifetime, they jointly pursued enlightenment as companions. Certain Buddhist traditions insist their encounter wasn't mere coincidence. Destiny itself had orchestrated this union. Yasodhara defied every stereotype of helpless princesses awaiting rescue. Born into the prestigious Shakya clan, identical royal lineage as Siddhartha, she possessed exceptional intelligence and razor-sharp wit. This was a woman capable of dominating political strategy sessions and philosophical debates with seasoned scholars. The Lalitavistara Sutra documents their wedding as an extravagant celebration. But notice this crucial detail most historians ignore. Before Siddhartha could claim her hand, he had to prove his worthiness. Competitions against rival suitors, archery, swordsmanship, intellectual combat, and Yasodhara? She wasn't some trophy to be claimed. She was actively selecting her life partner. When they finally united in marriage, palace existence appeared flawless, gold adorning every surface, servants fulfilling every desire, 3 separate palaces designed for different seasons, because excess knows no bounds. Their son, Rahula, arrived, and momentarily everything resembled a storybook conclusion. But Yasodhara was observant. She detected the subtle shifts, midnight wanderings where Siddhartha would gaze at constellations for countless hours, profound silences during shared meals, questions about human suffering that emerged from nowhere, the escalating restlessness haunting his eyes. Her intelligence allowed her to sense something brewing beneath the surface, Yet nobody, not even someone as perceptive as Yasodhara, could have anticipated what was approaching: the abandonment. The night it occurred, Yasodhara slumbered peacefully beside her husband and infant son. According to the Mahavastu, among Buddhism's earliest texts, Siddhartha observed his sleeping family one final time. Some versions claim he nearly awakened her. Others suggest he kissed their foreheads farewell. Ultimately, he chose silence over conversation. He mounted his horse Kantaka, summoned his charioteer Channa, and dissolved into the darkness. Morning arrived. Yasodhara's hand reached across the bed. Empty space. She called his name. Silence answered. She sprinted through palace corridors, interrogating servants, guards, anyone with information. Nobody possessed answers. Then the devastating realization struck. Her husband, her child's father, the future king, had evaporated without explanation or farewell. Experience that sensation for a moment. The disorientation, the terror, the humiliation. This is where Yasodhara's true strength crystallizes. While others might have crumbled, she chose fury, righteous, burning anger. He hadn't abandoned them for warfare or royal obligations or another woman. He'd deserted his son, his subjects, everything they'd constructed together, without justification anyone could comprehend. The palace vibrated with gossip. Neighboring kingdoms whispered speculations, captured insane or simply cowardly. And Yasodhara? She cradled baby Rahula while confronting judgment from an entire civilization that automatically blamed wives when husbands vanished. Ancient India showed zero mercy to single mothers, especially royal ones whose husbands had mysteriously disappeared. Instead of retreating into shame, Yasodhara elevated her dignity and raised Rahula independently. Years accumulated. No correspondence, no messages, no confirmation. He remained alive. The woman who once commanded everything now had to reconstruct her entire reality from fragments. The revelation, 3 years transformed into 4. 4 became 5. Yasodhara had nearly abandoned hope of ever encountering her husband again. Then rumors began infiltrating the kingdom. Merchants traversing trade routes carried peculiar tales. A wandering teacher near Bodh Gaya. A man discussing suffering and liberation. Someone whose description triggered familiar memories. Initially, Yasodhara dismissed these whispers. Dozens of spiritual teachers roamed India. Holy men were commonplace. Why would this particular one matter? But something fundamental had shifted within her. During those abandonment years, palace luxury, the gold, the servants, the ceremonial performances, everything felt meaningless now. Hollow. She began visiting temples, not for appearances or royal protocol, but genuinely searching for something authentic, something capable of explaining why her perfect existence had disintegrated. Then one afternoon, a traveling monk arrived at the palace entrance. He spoke enthusiastically about a teacher called the Buddha, the awakened one. This teacher had discovered suffering's root cause. He could explain why humans hurt, why nothing endures eternally, why attachment generates pain. The monk described this Buddha's background: royal family, abandoned palace, left wife and child to pursue truth. When the monk mentioned the teacher's origins, a prince from the Shakya clan named Siddhartha Gautama, Yasodhara's blood froze. The chamber spun. Her missing husband had become India's most celebrated spiritual teacher. Relief flooded through her first. He was alive. Then rage arrived, then confusion, then something unexpected. Genuine curiosity. The return. The Vinaya Pitaka records that 6 years post-Enlightenment, Buddha decided to return home. Yasodhara received the news before anyone else. Servants whispered about royal preparations. The king was orchestrating a massive welcome for the enlightened prince. The entire kingdom pulsed with excitement, everyone except Yasodhara. She made a decision that shocked the court. While every other royal family member rushed to greet Buddha at the city entrance, she remained in the palace. She refused to chase him as if nothing had transpired. If he desired to see her, he could come to her. Hours passed. Finally, footsteps approached her chamber. The man who entered resembled Siddhartha, but fundamentally different, calmer, more present. His eyes contained a depth previously absent. Simple robes replaced royal silk. The ancient texts omit personal details, but we can imagine that moment's gravity. Years of separation. Two people who had become entirely different beings. He'd discovered enlightenment through renunciation. She'd found strength through endurance. Both had transformed, but via opposite paths. Perhaps few words were necessary, just the acknowledgement of who they'd each become. Their reunion remained incomplete without one more person. Their son Rahula, now 7 years old, meeting his father for the first time since infancy. The revolution. The genuine shock arrived next. After their private conversation, Yasodhara made an announcement that stunned everyone. She wanted to join the Sangha, the Buddhist practitioners' community, not to follow her husband, to follow her own path toward enlightenment. This is where Yasodhara's story becomes revolutionary, and where most history books conveniently skip pages. Initially, Buddha refused her request, not because he doubted her spiritual capacity, but because the Sangha only accepted men. No women permitted, that was the rule. But Yasodhara wasn't programmed to accept rejection quietly. She partnered with Mahapajapati Gautami, Buddha's stepmother, and assembled a group of royal women. Together, they approached Buddha repeatedly. He continually refused, so they executed something unprecedented. They shaved their heads, donned yellow robes, and appeared at the monastery anyway. Visualize this scene. Former princesses and queens standing at an all-male religious community's gates, demanding equal access to spiritual training. This wasn't 2026. This was 500 BCE. Women challenging religious authority? Unheard of. Finally, after pressure from his cousin Ananda, Buddha relented. He established the Bhikkhuni Sangha, the order of Buddhist nuns. Yasodhara became one of the first women ever ordained in Buddhist tradition. But she didn't stop there. The Therigatha, a collection of verses by early Buddhist nuns, preserves Yasodhara's own words. I have cut off my hair. I have put on the yellow robe. I live by alms. Having been a woman of great beauty, now I am free from attachment. She wasn't celebrating proximity to her former husband. She was celebrating liberation from everything that once defined her. Beauty, marriage status, royal privilege. Yasodhara developed her unique teaching methodology, her own insights, her own devoted followers. She became renowned for helping other women understand that spiritual awakening didn't require suffering silently. She taught that pain, abandonment, betrayal, these weren't enlightenment obstacles. They were gateways to understanding all relationships, all circumstances, all identities' temporary nature. Certain traditions state Yasodhara attained arahantship. Some even claim she reached identical liberation as Buddha himself. Complete enlightenment. The woman once defined as Buddha's wife had become something exponentially more powerful. Yasodhara the Enlightened, the erased legacy. So why don't we know more about Yasodhara? Why isn't she mentioned in every Buddhism class alongside Buddha? The brutal reality, her early Buddhist texts were preserved through oral tradition, passed down by monks, recorded by male scholars, interpreted through centuries of male-dominated religious institutions. Male scholars simplified women's stories, minimized them, sometimes erased them completely. The official narrative became Buddha left his wife and child to seek enlightenment. End of story. Her pain became a footnote. Her spiritual achievements became secondary details. Recent scholarship has started recovering these lost voices. Buddhist feminists and historians are excavating deeper into texts, analyzing archaeological evidence, questioning traditional interpretations. They're discovering early Buddhism had far more female leadership than we've been taught. Women didn't follow men into spiritual life. They created their own paths. Yasodhara wasn't unique because she was Buddha's wife. She was unique because she transformed personal suffering into universal wisdom. Your story continues. We've reached the conclusion of a story that's really a beginning. Yasodhara's journey teaches us something profound about resilience, a transformation, and refusing to let others' choices define your worth. She didn't wait for rescue. She didn't spend decades consumed by bitterness. She didn't define herself through someone else's spiritual journey. Instead, she took life's worst moment and used it as raw material for enlightenment. A modern psychology calls this post-traumatic growth. Buddhism calls the transformation of suffering into wisdom. Yasodhara just called it living. 25 centuries later, when life abandons you in darkness, remember, somewhere in ancient India, a woman woke up alone and chose to become extraordinary. What did Yasodhara's story teach you? Drop a comment below. And if this changed how you see Buddhism, share it with someone who needs to hear about transforming pain into power. Until next time, stay curious, stay wise. Your story isn't over. It's still being written.